Hello, and welcome to a real view into the breast cancer journey. I'm Bambi Famous Kane, a 5-year breast cancer survivor and an avid advocate for breast cancer awareness. Please join us as my friends and fellow breast cancer survivors, Angela Long and Joanne Hampton, share the intimate details of what it's really like to have breast cancer. These two very courageous young women have survived over 8+ years of breast cancer and have become very well respected, relentless local advocates, sharing and bearing all, to educate and inspire others while fundraising for the fight against breast cancer and ultimately a cure. While 12,000+ walkers sport their pink bras to make strides against breast cancer, each one of us here today had to face the decision of what bra, if any bra, we could ever wear. Double mastectomies, chemotherapy, wigs, while I live to see my children grow up. Angela and Joanne will share a real view of their breast cancer journey, and one that certainly is much longer than a 5K breast cancer walk. Angela and Joanne, thanks for being here today. And as you know, the 5K walk is coming up, which is, for a little bit of disclosure for today's show, this is where I had the privilege of meeting Joanne and Angela. It's actually coming up on my 5-year anniversary, as you know. Yeah. I'll be a 5-year breast cancer survivor myself. So this is very timely to have this discussion and sharing our views today on breast cancer survivorship. And actually, it was Angela who I received my first phone call when I got that diagnosis, who reached out to me as a young woman with breast cancer herself. And the rest is history. We all met up at Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, have been through a lot of fundraising, stories about survivorship, and that's why we're here today. So it's been a journey in our friendship, but let's share our journey about breast cancer. So Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself first, your personal life, and then Joanne, if you could do the same, that would be wonderful.
Well, I'm a wife and a mother of 2. I have a son and a daughter. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2004. Mm-hmm. I was 35 years old at the time, and my son was just 5 years old, and my daughter was 2. I was diagnosed with late stage 2 breast cancer. It had spread to my lymph nodes. It was HER2 positive. Okay. I ended up having to have chemotherapy, 8 rounds of chemotherapy, several surgeries, and I was fortunate enough, and thanks to American Cancer Society for this, I was fortunate enough to be part of the Herceptin trial, so I did a year of that also.
Can you, in a minute, and Joanne, I'll get to you, can you explain real quickly though what the HER2 and Herceptin, for some people who don't know what that means with your diagnosis?
Well, my breast cancer was found to be HER2 positive, so it was attributed to that. And Herceptin is a drug that targets that specific type of breast cancer. Okay,
all right. Joanne, how about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm also a wife and a mother of 2, a little boy and a little girl. I was diagnosed in 2003, and I was 33 years old. My son was about 20 months old, and my daughter was 4.5. So that was a very scary time. And I was triple negative, which I didn't have any hormone involvement in my breast cancer. And we went through radiation, and chemotherapy and radiation also, a couple of surgeries, and I'm here today. And
okay, so you talk about triple negative. Can you just share that a little bit so people understand
triple negative,
that may be going through this?
Triple negative, a lot of different causes for breast cancer, and a lot of times it's different hormone levels, and that wasn't the case in my breast cancer. It was just a straight aggressive cancer.
So does that put you more at risk for recurrence, or can you?
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, 9 years ago, because I am a 9-year breast cancer survivor, 9 years ago, it was very new and we didn't know too much about it, but we did the hereditary testing.
Okay,
and
so the genetic testing was available then, at 9 years ago?
Yeah, it was available. We didn't know too much about it, but it was available. It was very new at the time, and I did have that done, and I tested positive for that. So it's something that my body I have that mutation.
Okay, so we're talking about the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes?
Yes,
okay.
we are. We're talking.
So does that put, how about yourself, Angela? Was that the genetic testing something that?
Well, I was not tested right away. The test was not given readily at that time. It was a newer test. But a couple of years later, they tested me, and I tested negative for it. So it is not hereditary cancer.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Joanne. You're both very young, which brings on just a whole lot of more emotions as a young woman, obviously probably at your prime, you know, for femininity or motherhood, career. When you heard that diagnosis, what went through your mind? What kind of emotions were you feeling? I mean, you had to be scared for your kids. And
oh my God, I can't die. I can't die because my children won't grow up to be the people that they're meant to be if I'm not there. They won't be the loving children or the loving person or that they're supposed to be if I just can't die. So that was it. What do I do? And let's start chemotherapy. I could do it Wednesday. You know, today's Monday. I can start it Wednesday, but I can't die. I couldn't believe that I could die, and I just wasn't having any part of that.
I think when you have young kids, the shift is not just about me. It's not, you know, oh my gosh, I have cancer. I'm, you know, my life is at stake. Now you have young children's lives who are at stake. You know, it's your job to be there, to be their mom and to raise them and teach them and love them, and you don't want to give that job up to someone else.
So then how did you tell your children? How did you tell, and again, because I've grown to be your friends through our journey, you know, I know Avery and I know Connor. How did you tell them?
Well, Avery was young at the time. She was too. Actually, Joanne and I's kids are similar, the same age as now, but she's a year, so they were actually younger for her. But for me, Avery was 2, so she wasn't really the concern with having the conversation with. My son was the one. He was 5. And what we were really concerned, how are we going to tell him without scaring him? But it's a neat story because we sat him down and we were very concerned about using the right words without raising his level of anxiety and worry and concern. But we wanted to be honest, and we sat down and told him that Mommy was sick, but the doctors were going to give her medicine and make her better. And we went through, you know, the whole spiel with him, and he sits and he looks up at us and he says, "Am I still going to get to go to karate?"
Spoken like a true child.
Yeah. So our concentration, we laughed, and our concentration was just trying to get through cancer, get through the treatment, get better, and try and keep their lives as normal as possible.
And how about you, Joanne? How did you share it with? How old were Melissa and Michael at the time?
Michael was little, but but Melissa, same, you know, because she was so young. It was Mommy's sick, you know, and the medicine that Mommy has to take to make Mommy better, you know, is really yucky medicine, and Mommy might lose her hair and not look like Mommy, but I'm still Mommy, and it's going to be okay. And
but if I remember correctly, didn't you share with us on a car ride or somewhere down our other journeys? Didn't you take Michael to radiation therapy with you, or tell us a little more about that? Or
because Michael was so young, he wasn't in pre-K yet, and radiation is every single day for 6 weeks, every single day for 6 weeks. So here he is. He's at this time. He's not even 2.5. He was just 2, maybe, you know, a couple months. And what am I gonna do? I'm a mom. My husband's working, and I have a 2-year-old that accompanied me every single day for 6 weeks to radiation. And it's like they know, children, he knew. He was only 2 and he's a boy, and yet he still sat in that chair and he had his little lollipop and his little pencil and his paper, and I would run in and he would draw a picture and I'd run out, and he didn't get up, he didn't mump, nothing. He was, and every day for 6 weeks, that was our routine. Me and my son would go to radiation together.
And you also went through chemo, Joanne?
I also did chemo.
And Angela, you did as well?
Yes.
How did they handle you losing your hair? And what did you say to them? What was, mommy is losing her hair. Did you wear wigs? Share with us a little bit about how that was.
My daughter had a rough time with it. She was 2. She didn't understand why mommy didn't look like the princesses in her storybooks, and it really bothered her. And anytime she would see me without my wig or a hat, she would constantly be touching my head and petting it. And it was kind of funny, her concern about it, but she really was always asking me, why don't you grow your hair out, mommy, like the princesses? So, it was not fun for her, I think, to see me like that.
Joanne, how about?
Melissa was just like, if I was wearing a wig, she would just say, I know that's not your real hair.
Okay.
She would just like make this little whisper, I know what that is. But she wasn't too affected by it,
My son wasn't either.
Yeah, neither was Michael.
Both of you, obviously, were motivated by being a mother, but what about being a wife? Obviously, you have all these physical changes. You both had double mastectomies. You lost your breast, you lost your hair. How did that change your relationship with your spouse?
Well, I'm one of the lucky ones where I think that it actually brought me and my husband even closer.
Okay.
We have been together since high school. We're high school sweethearts and have always had a very close relationship and loving relationship, and we were just fortunate to have that even bond us even closer together.
Okay. So Brian, was he afraid for your life? Did he think that he might be without a mom? And
I'm sure he was, but he did a really good job of not showing it.
Okay.
And he was a great caretaker for me. Like I said, I'm really fortunate because I don't know that is the case for everyone.
For everybody. Joanne, how about Charles?
Charles, he was a great supporter. From the very first day that he came home from work and I met him outside to tell him that I got the phone call that I have breast cancer, he's like, don't worry, we'll get through this. And that was basically his whole thing. He was very, very calm, and it's going to be okay.
Okay.
We'll get through this. So he was very supportive and very understanding, because if I did have a little bit of energy, I really focused on spending that playing with the kids.
Okay.
I wasn't there for him as much, but he was very patient with it, which was wonderful, that I didn't have to feel that I had to be a wife because I couldn't.
Sure. Okay. You were focusing on getting well.
On getting well, and whatever I could do for the kids, whether I was helping with homework, drawing a picture, that little bit of energy that I could get together was focused on, making a memory for my kids to play.
But let's face it, yes, it's important to be a mom, yes, it's important to be a wife, but how did those physical changes, are either of you comfortable in sharing what those physical changes may have, did that even affect your intimacy, or how did you deal with any of that as far as?
Mine did, I know mine really.
I know there's many women out there thinking, I don't want my husband to see me without breast, or did you get reconstruction? Can you share a little bit about maybe some of those emotions or thoughts? We grow up in a society and a culture where looks are everything to us, and that's, I'm sure, important as a couple, as a husband and wife.
Yeah. Again,
You're lucky.
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky. I have a husband that wasn't super affected by it, or he didn't show it again.
Okay.
And I was lucky. I was able to have reconstruction, so I was able to regain, a lot of my physical appearance.
Okay.
It's not the same.
Right.
It's never the same. But Yeah, we get by. We
All
get
right.
by.
Joanne?
It was hard for me.
I know you talked about not wanting to stand in front of the mirror at times or look down.
I didn't look for a long time. I did have, a double mastectomy, and I did go through reconstruction. But after that double mastectomy, I didn't look. I didn't look for a long time. And intimacy, it just wasn't there. And thank goodness my husband was fine. He never, he never said anything. I wouldn't undress in front of him. I couldn't look. It took a long time before I looked in the mirror or looked down.
So what was it that finally made you look down? What was the point that turned that around for you? Or
we took a small family vacation, and I was in the hotel, and I was quickly trying to change, and I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't that bad. I don't know what why I didn't do it, but it wasn't bad at all. And I remember that. I remember it was like, it wasn't that bad, but I was horrified. That was a very scary, and thank goodness my husband was so loving and patient, and, didn't push me, didn't say, he was, oh, come on, he was just very easy going about the whole thing. Wonderful. So it was hard.
Did either of you tap into any of the resources, or we all know, especially being here for American Cancer Society, what their resources are, but can you share with us, for our viewers, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of resources that they have, not just for counseling, but for physical attributes, the wigs and their, Look Good, Feel Better program. Did either of you utilize any of them, and can you share with us what was helpful and how, people can, even if it's counseling for your family, if you can give me a little insight in our audience, some of what you use to help you get by, physically and emotionally.
Well, right away, I was informed of the wigs and the scarves that the American Cancer Society provides. So I went into their office and visited. They had a smaller office at that time, and they really didn't have a big selection. So I did not end up. I think I ended up taking home a scarf.
Okay.
And it was hard. That was a really probably one of my roughest moments. The volunteer that was sitting with me, and it was before I lost my hair, and she was placing the wigs on my head, and most of them were borrowed and for older ladies, and I couldn't help myself. I just broke into tears. It was the first time I had cried after my diagnosis, and I felt so bad because I know that here a young woman is sitting in her midst, and she's trying to help, and I think she was wanting to cry herself. It was really tough.
It was a reality check.
It was. That's when it really hit me. I think that moment it really hit me.
That you were sick, would you say, or that you knew this was it, or what was going through your mind?
I had cancer, and I was going to lose my hair, and.
Joanne, I see you getting a little, it's bringing back some of those emotions. Did you share the same?
I wasn't fortunate to go to American Cancer Society when I was first diagnosed. They called me in my oncology group, oh, it's the baby. That's how I was referred to, because I was the youngest one.
Young.
I was the youngest one. And basically, they tell you right away, okay, you're going to lose your hair, you need to get a wig, here's a place, and it cost me $700 for this wig.
Wow.
And I think that's why with American Cancer Society that they supply the wigs to all these women, and not just one, I would have liked to have known about that. I bought my scarves, I bought the wig that I wore maybe 3 times because they're so warm and you can't. So, I've gotten, and when I learned after my diagnosis, and I learned the things that they actually, which is wonderful, makeup tips, how to put on eyebrows, so you look, better.
You look good, feel better.
You look good, and exactly.
And when you look good, you do feel better.
You do, definitely. So,
and as you know, I went through a similar thing, which is where we met with the American Cancer Society. And, I'm sitting here listening to a lot of your stories as a mom, wife. I had just lost my daughter the year before I got diagnosed with cancer, as you well know, and I was grieving that. And then I got diagnosed with breast cancer, the whole double mastectomy, reconstruction, and had to go through all of these things that you went through as well. Losing my hair and thinking, my children were a little bit older than yours at the time. Dane was in high school, and of course, teenagers. It was very uncomfortable for them to see me lose my hair. And so I was more concerned. I didn't mind being bald. I was concerned about you know, how my son and his friends would respond. And, you know, when I lost my hair and I had the dark circles under my eye from chemo and no more ruddy skin and was pale as could be, that's when they looked at me and went, wow, you look sick.
You're sick.
And that's when I decided, you know, that maybe there was a time and a place to wear a wig, you know, and it was more for their benefit, not so much mine, because it's amazing how some people, and I don't know, you might be able to have experienced some of those similar emotions where some people are very uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable when they see you bald. They're like, oh my gosh, Bambi looks sick. What's wrong? Or, why, you know, what's going on there? So, you know, they were two great programs, the wigs and the look good, feel better. They taught you how to put on makeup, look a little bit better. And I mean, I remember even having some fun with the wigs. I mean, I went and got a long little red wig and went to, you know, a friend's party, and like it was a disco party. I thought, you know what, if I can't, you know, you gotta have fun with it. I mean, did you experience similar situations where you had to keep a sense of humor? Did you have fun with any of the illness? Can you share a story that might be a little more lighthearted in the midst of the darkness of chemo and radiation and losing your hair?
Well, I will say that I definitely did the wig route because I wanted to keep everything as normal for my kids as possible. And I didn't really do a lot of experimenting with the different wigs, but I do have a funny story. Well, one time when we were at home, I heard some noise coming from the bedroom, and it was around bath time. So I went in there to find out. It was the kids, and they were laughing and giggling, and I'm like, what is going on in there? And I thought they were just, you know, making a mess in the bathtub or something. And I walk in, and both of them are wearing my wigs, dancing around in my high heels with nothing else on.
There you
So
go.
I'll always remember those are the fun times and the funny times that you just have to, and then you burst out laughing because of all the stress that's built up inside of you anyway. It's a great release.
Did it give you a sense of hope, or wow, maybe my kids are adjusting, or
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
that they could laugh
about it versus fear of losing mommy?
Yes.
And Joanne, something's similar,
I
whether it's
don't-
going through the chemo or...
I don't remember, well, I don't remember, like my kids, like I don't think they really realized how serious it was. You know, mommy was sick, but you know, like it was, you know, they still had their little things that they did, and you know, because even if mommy has a cold, mommy's really never sick. Mommy's still
Mommies
always
can't
mommy.
get sick.
Mommy still has to do this. Mommy still has her things, and you know, so you know, it wasn't so bad really. Like the kids really didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they really knew. They were fine, and mommy was still mommy. Mommy was just tired a little bit more, and
I would say, as difficult as it was having young kids and having cancer, in a weird way,
it made you get up, and
it
really
kept you focused on something other than yourself. I mean, you still had to be mom. Those kids still needed to be fed. Life needed to go on as them, and so you were able to shift your focus onto them and escape from being a cancer patient.
And you bring up a good point, because like many women, and you know, we've all experienced this, there are many survivors there, and there's no right or wrong on how to accept or deal with the diagnosis of breast cancer. Both of you, obviously, along with myself, I mean, we're here today for this very reason, is to share our story, to share our journey, to share our survivorship. We're survivors. Joanne, you're going on 9 years, Angela 8. It'll be 5 years for me next week. I'm thrilled to be here. You just talked about it was your children that motivated you and got you up every day. I can say the same. It was my husband, it was my children, it was for other women, it was for, we didn't have to tell our daughters. Having said that, you are a survivor. At what point in your journey, you know, that 5-year mark I know is critical. And I know I keep saying, 5, I'm fighting for 5. You obviously are survivors. You're surviving for your children, your husband. When you hit that 5-year mark, or at any mark in your journey, did you feel a little sense of relief, or I'm gonna fight this?
I think that every year is an important year, and I do think the closer you are and the further you are away from past the 5-year mark, it gets better and better. And I I don't know. I think we all have different moments in
time,
in time where we're settled with it. But the 2 and 3 year mark was a difficult time for me. I think I was far enough past my treatment and my caregiving, and I was concerned. I would say between 1 and 3 years. It was a lot of psychosocial things of dealing with cancer and trying to find your new normal.
Okay.
And I think we all want to go back to where we were.
Mm-hmm.
But after a cancer diagnosis, you are never that person again. You can be a better person,
sure,
but you're never that person again. And as long, I think we need to realize that, you know, we don't have to be that same person and still live a rich and fulfilled life.
Different, maybe
It's different.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, Joanne, what is a survivor to you? What's it mean to survive? Share with us, and let's talk a little bit about survivorship and why we're here today.
Yeah, to survive cancer, first of all, just like the initial shock after hearing the words, you have cancer, is, you know, I think just hearing those words and trying to move on is like just surviving that. Is huge. I think that was like, I heard that and it was, yeah, you become a completely different person. I think values what's really important in life. You know, what, like the petty nonsense or the little drama is like, you know, no, it does not matter. It's just, you know what, I have dog hair on my floor all the time. I have 2 dogs. That's it. You know, it's going to be there. I have other things, my other priorities now, and you know, like I want to focus on being there for the field trips, and you know, because I can be there for the field trips, and that's important to me. And I think I rambled and not answered that question, but
no, you did. You did, and we're fortunate enough, obviously, to sit here as survivors. But as you and I both know, all of us know, sitting here today, there are some friends of ours who have not survived this journey. And there will be many women out there who don't survive the journey. And Joanne, I know this year alone, we have a mutual friend who we met through this journey of American Cancer Society. And I see you have Deb Schuster's picture here. Can you share a little bit about Deb and her journey, and just what does it mean as a survivor? And how were you affected when a friend of ours loses their journey?
Deb battled breast cancer twice. Just when she thought she was done, she was re-diagnosed. Deb was a firefighter, single mom of 2, and a paramedic, and she lost her fight. She was an incredible woman. No matter where you were or how well you knew her, she'd walk into the room and everybody would just glow. She was really an incredible woman.
Do you want to hold up her picture again? Just hold it up for
that. This is Deb.
And Deb is a mother.
Mother of 2, single mom of 2. And she's just an incredible, wonderful, always smiling. She was such a breath of fresh air. No matter, she'd just walk into the room, and whether people had just met her or she was so wonderful, they had felt this strong connection with her. She was just an incredible person. But Angela and I both witnessed her sons carrying her coffin. She lost her fight. And I remember her last words to me a couple days before she passed, and it was the week before Mother's Day, and she goes, I just don't want to go before Mother's Day. If I could just last that long. It was important that she didn't, you know, die around that time so that her children wouldn't remember. But she died the week prior. She didn't make it. She lasted 2 more days after that.
When that happens, and you know, you're tearing up, we're all tearing up inside. I have no doubt there's other people who are either going through cancer, whether they're a spouse now, or you know, Deb's, you know, children, all the firefighters in Sarasota,
who are extremely supportive.
I mean, they're incredible. We all met through. It's another friendship that we developed through this club that we did not choose to be a part of. You know, we did not want to be part of this pink club. You know, putting on your pink bra can be all fancy, but it's not all fancy. And so I remember, you know, being around Deb and her inspiration and going through the Pink Heels tour that we all did with the pink fire trucks around Sarasota County, and Deb was up there with her pink fire hat on. But when you hear something like that happening, you lose one of your own, does it ever make you think, why not me, or is it going to be me next? Did those thoughts go through your mind?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Joanne and I have another mutual friend that we've lost to breast cancer, and her kids go to school with our kids, and I can't attend an event without seeing her kids and wondering, you know, how am I the lucky one? Mm-hmm. It's very emotional.
And it is. I mean, I'm sitting here holding back tears for the very same reason. You know, with children, you think, you see someone like Deb. Yes, Avery and Connor and Melissa and Michael are a little bit younger than my children, but I think I don't want to leave my children behind. So when something like this happens, especially as young mothers, which, you know, brings me to one more point. Again, you are survivors. We are the lucky ones right now. We are survivors, and we are out there fighting for this disease, fighting for a cure. And one of the other things the two of you are part of, which is another valuable resource in our community, is a group called Survivors Rock. And we do rock. So, but this is particularly beneficial for young survivors.
Right.
Angela, can you share with us a little bit the evolution of that group and why that came to fruition and what that offers to our community?
Well, Survivors Rock started with my friend Sherry mm-hmm. and I. We used to meet. Actually, our sons were in kindergarten together, and that's when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I found out the next summer, or the beginning of the next school year, that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So I had reached out to her. We were being treated at the same center, so we would run into each other, and we built a very close friendship. And we kept in contact, and we would walk and talk. And I tell you, being able to talk to someone who was walking in similar mm-hmm. steps as me and dealing with a lot of the same issues, and being, because I mean, my support system was wonderful. My family mm-hmm. was terrific. My friends were there for me. But to be able to talk to someone who knew what I was talking about was huge in my healing process mm-hmm. after treatment was over. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a process. And she would get connected with other survivors. I was connected with other survivors. She had met Joanne. Mm-hmm. And finally, we used to say all the time, we need to get everyone together for lunch, or we need to get, and one day, finally Sherry mm-hmm. made the call. We finally did. We got us all together. We went to lunch. That was when I met Joanne for the first time. Mm-hmm. And we said, we need to keep this going. And so now, you know, then we started meeting every month, and we would go out to dinners, and it grew, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And fortunately and unfortunately, at least we were providing a space for mm-hmm. others to come and young survivors. And when
you say young, what age bracket are we talking here?
35 to 40, okay. Right?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah. We advertised it as 20s, 30s, sure. Women diagnosed in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. I would say the majority of us were 30s, in our 30s and early 40s when we were diagnosed.
And I remember that was actually the first time I met you, Joanne.
Yeah.
I went to my first Survivors Rock meeting, and you know, I mentioned Angela was the first person that called me after I was actually the second. The first person was an ACS volunteer, an American Cancer Society volunteer, an elderly woman, and I just couldn't relate. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate the phone call. Right. You know, it was one of their Reach to Recovery, or right. you know, they call you and reach out, and I appreciated that. But when Angela called, I went, there's a young woman like myself. And then I came to Survivors Rock, and there's Joanne Spitfire. You know, I thought, this woman needs to be on the committee, or this woman needs to be in town. And having said that, and talking about young survivors, Melissa, tell us about what Melissa started. Speaking of a cure, your daughter Melissa and young survivors and support systems.
Melissa started in 6th grade. She started her own club. Mm-hmm. Middle schools don't really have too many clubs, mm-hmm. and she decided she wanted to do something. And the one friend that we had spoken about, that their children attend our children,
it happened to be
Rita.
Rita, okay.
Had passed, yeah. Right. And her daughter was good friends with my daughter at the time, and when she passed away, and during that time, she confided a lot in my daughter. So how it came, she decided that this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to put together a club and call it the Cure Club. And she does fundraising, and she speaks. She's just like a little...
And this is at Pineview?
This is at Pineview.
Okay.
She does it. She has her own little Cure Club. She raised the most money for her relay. She goes out into the community and gets donations. And there's been other children that have actually sought her out and sat down and said, my mom was just diagnosed, and she's been in the hospital for 10 days, and is that bad? I really don't know what's right. And my daughter was there for her. And if this one horrible thing that happened to me and my daughter could have, just made it easier on this other child to no, my mom went through that, and that happened to my mom, and she's going to be okay.
She's okay.
Yeah.
And she's okay, yeah.
And yeah, she's providing a space for them to go to, because they know where to go.
And so it's just an incredible thing. But she's, and she also goes throughout the community, and we meet with groups of, where children have somehow been affected with cancer, whether it's a parent or they lost a sibling or them themselves. And it's amazing to see both my children. You really don't realize the effect all these years later, that they're fine. Mikey will play ball with a bald child. He's visited a child while he's going through and receiving chemotherapy and thought nothing of it. They're on the videos.
Okay. And again, here you are. And unfortunately, we're getting close on time. And quickly mention, if you will, about the American Cancer Society and your involvement, and then some of your last thoughts or advice on what you'd like to share with our viewers. Some last tidbits on how you'd like to share your journey. Just a little bit, real quick, on how you got involved in ACS. You both have a team, Angela's Angels, and now it's Breast Investigators, right? That Walk's Inspiring. A few words, closing thoughts, if you would, on what Making Strides means to you, and maybe a bit of advice on what you'd like to share about your journey, both of you. If Angela, you want to?
Well, for me, Making Strides it's a lot of things. American Cancer Society has touched my life in so many ways, but my first inspiration was my first Making Strides event. It was the first time I had unveiled my head after chemotherapy. My hair was about this long, and it was such an inspiring moment because my friends had formed a team for me, and all of my supporters and friends were there and walking alongside me, and just such an emotional day for me. And to know that I was helping, my involvement has continued with American Cancer Society, just knowing all of the programs that not only I have benefited from, the Reach to Recovery program, had women, volunteers visiting me in the hospital, calling and visiting me at my home, the Look Good, Feel Good program. The
Look Good, Feel Better.
Yeah. The wigs also, and which I have to say has grown tremendously over the years. It's like a little shop now because of all the fundraising. So yeah, they just have so many programs that I just am proud to support.
Do you have any final words that you'd like to share with anyone listening about your journey?
I really would like to stress to anyone who's dealing with cancer, especially women. We tend to take so much on and think that we just need to take care of it and do it and handle it ourselves. But reach out to programs like the American Cancer Society offers. They also have a new program called What's Next, and it's an online resource for cancer patients to connect with other cancer survivors.
Okay, thank you. Joanne, some closing thoughts or Making Strides, what that means to you? And
Making Strides, I find it so inspiring, and it just gives me this such hope that all these people, that whether they've had breast cancer or they all yet come out, and I feel like it's almost personal that they're all here to keep. They help me, and it's just so inspiring. It moves me every time. I love going to see all the people there, all their pink T-shirts, and it really, if you haven't been to one, you need to go, especially as a survivor. You know, you will sit there in awe of how incredible and how inspiring it is. And then shed many tears, but it's just all such a wonderful moment. American Cancer Society has helped me a lot. I am so grateful that I can give back and help them with their programs, because I truly believe in them. I think that a woman should be able to go pick up a wig and a scarf and have someone else to talk to, because I'm afraid, we've all been there. I know what you're feeling, you know, so reach out. And it's a stepping stone. It's a horrible disease, and it's not pretty, and it's degrading at some point, but you know, you grow from it. And I think I've made some wonderful friends, and I've become a different person, and it's changed my path. I think it changed my children's path, but I'm grateful for where we are today. So it's not completely negative.
And, you know, and thanks for sharing. I know there's a lot of emotion that goes into this journey that the three of us have been through together. And one of our biggest bond has been American Cancer Society's making strides against breast cancer. You know, I was the event chair for the 10-year anniversary, and we had a goal of 10,000 walkers. And Angela, you were the survivor chair, and Joanne, you were out there pounding the sand for advocacy. And like you know, that walk is what inspired me to get involved. It was my first week of chemo. My husband's staff brought out a wheelchair. I wasn't sure I was going to make that walk. But when I got out there and saw the thousands of mothers, brothers, sisters, children walking around the polo grounds with pictures, there's something that just rejuvenates you and motivates you. And I know for the 10-year, we stood there, Joanne and I, at that starting line and watched every walker cross and honked, because it was so inspiring. So thank you for sharing, you know, what it means to you, and sharing your innermost thoughts about how you felt, what you went through in your breast cancer journey with everyone today. And, you know, our hope is the obvious, that, you know, someone will learn from this. You know, other women in the community. I've learned from you. We've learned from each other. And thank you. So we appreciate it. So, and in closing, you know, there's 12,000 walkers, hopefully, they're looking for this year. And I know their logo is put on your pink bra. You know, that is on your pink bra. And I hope one day, after all this fundraising, and you know, that there's some effort out there for research and development and new treatment options and things like that. All this is for one cause, and that's for a cure, you know, for breast cancer. So hopefully one day, we're going to get rid of that pink bra.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Joanne.
Thanks.
Thank you.